space station.
Hey guys, welcome back to the show. Just a reminder, tickets are selling out for our conference, Rebels of Disclosure, May 13th through the 16th in Grafton, Illinois. There are still tickets left, but take advantage of that and grab one while you can. The links are below in the description. We also have a brand new website, journeytotruth.online, where you can find all the information about the conference, and the conference itself has a website, rebelsofdisclosure.com. Both of those links are below, and you can find everything there that you need to. And we encourage you all to come if you feel compelled at all. We would love to see you there. It's going to be a lot of fun. There's a lot of vendors this year, probably more vendors than we've had the past couple of years. And we have more speakers this year. Overall, it's just going to be a bigger event, and we're really excited about it. So we've made a few additions to the lineup. Margie Kay has been added to the lineup, and Derek and Daniel from Shred the Veil. If you don't know who they are, their grandfather wrote the book Life with the Cosmos Clearance, which talks about his involvement with the shadow government and top secret clearances. And it's an incredible book, and they have some new information they're bringing forward, some new discoveries that they're uncovering. So we're really excited about that. Today, we are joined by Leah Ray. So she is an Akashic record reader, but her story leading up to that is what we're actually going to focus on today, because it's incredible, some of the things she's encountered along the way. And it's one of those stories that not everybody gets to play in those realms where you have with certain people in the music industry, and your time as a massage therapist in Miami and what you witnessed there. So there's a lot I want to get into today. But before we do that, I guess we'll give you an opportunity to kind of introduce yourself to our audience, and just let us know kind of how you found your way into this.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be with you both. Yeah, so I just had an interesting journey of just trying to find people that were like-minded and trying to find people that were awake and aware of just what else is out there. And so I kept hidden on my journey for most of my life. And then I ended up saying, well, I need to actually be of service, because hiding under a rock doesn't always help people. And if I'm here to do work and help people, I just it kind of just evolved on its own. I believe in divine timing, but I thankfully just had to be in the areas of healing arts. So the healing arts energy allowed me to practice energy work and talk about things that other people normally wouldn't accept or talk about. But in the healing art realm, I could say, oh, I've seen spirit since I was a kid, and I see entities on people, and all these really out there stuff. But I still would always filter according to who I was talking to. But with people like you and your crowd, and just people that are aware of many things, I feel more at home. And I have very few amazing friends that I can share stuff with. But again, it's very few. So I just was honored that I could find people that could speak their mind. And I ended up meeting Jock, who introduced me to you, Tyler, randomly, because I was on Instagram and I never really went into that realm because I would get distracted easily. But because under the whole lockdown thing, I had time on my hands to actually do other things. And I introduced myself to Jock. I offered him an Akashic record reading. And then from there, I just said, I just wanted to give him gratitude for him exposing a lot of the dark stuff and stuff that I've seen on my journey. I saw dark and light. So I just was surprised people were bold enough to share the dark stuff, because I always was scared. I'm not scared. I was basically more afraid that they would, shut me down in terms of not allowing me to speak. So I just kind of kept hidden, and I would just observe all the areas I was in. I would dive into different realms in Miami, because Miami is a really eclectic place, but it was kind of like training wheels to go into that spirit realm, because there was a lot of stuff that it was heavy for me. It was dark for me. And I honestly didn't want to go through a lot of the stuff, but I did. And I was like, let me at least help others journey and navigate, because I was fortunate enough to have mentors and masters around me. And I was really fortunate to have my dad support me in terms of allowing me to share my little secrets of seeing stuff, and why do I feel people's pain and stress, and why do I see all these things around me. So that was an honor for me to be able to just have a mentor of a in my family, let's just say. Not everybody has that. So by learning on just the little stuff that I know, I was able to share and help others also experience their growth, because I believe we all have to help support each other on our journey, and it takes a whole team.
Right. Yeah, and it definitely takes a team, and it's great to have that support, obviously. And that's kind of why we do this. We create like the Journey to Truth family at this point. Everybody just shows up for each other, and it's pretty amazing. So, uh,
Yep.
you know, obviously it's crucial when we're navigating these times. Whenever we're getting ridiculed for almost everything, not
Yeah.
anymore so much, but when you first get into this, it's scary. So I'm just gonna we're just gonna jump right off the deep end, and I want to get into your time in the bar scene, I guess you could say. I believe you were doing bottle service or something.
Yeah, so I ended up, I had to pay for my own college and, my own stuff. So I tried to do normal jobs, and I just couldn't make enough money to support myself and to, pay my rent and stuff. So in Miami Beach, it was a really interesting time where there was still a lot of Art Deco area that was kind of in ruins. And there was a really cool, eclectic European crowd that would show up in the winter. And so we had still the seasons, the off seasons, and uh, the summers were really slow. But in the club world, we had like every night was a different club to go to. And it was more, let's say, the DJs could play whatever they wanted. So it was fun because my friends and I would just go out, and then I realized these girls are making crazy money just literally opening a bottle of champagne or a bottle of vodka. So I found myself in that realm, and I could make great money in 2 nights, and then I could go to school and go to the beach and play the rest of the week and not stress so much. So it gave me some freedom, but then at the same time, because I was so sensitive, it actually allowed me to see stuff that I didn't want to see, but because I didn't know how to block stuff or protect myself, I just was in a different realm. And I had already been in the healing arts realm. I was in the massage therapy realm. I was in a spa healing realm. And so I already knew that world, but even in that world, I could see stuff that I didn't want to see. So, but the nightclub world is where a lot of stuff just showed up that I was like, whoa. I always felt overwhelmed.
Right. So I guess I didn't realize. So the massage therapy part happened before the nightclub.
Yeah.
Um, okay. So well, we'll cover the nightclub, then we'll go backwards. So what kind of things would you see with some of the people? I know like some maybe celebrities would come through or musicians, and you would notice certain things energetically. You were able to see people's aura and read energies, right? And like, what are some of the things that you experienced with some of these people?
Well, I think it was also a defense mechanism for me, because I didn't always honor myself in terms of, I always try to look at the good in everyone. So I was like, oh, this person can't be that dark and horrible, icky feeling. There has to be good. But when it would hit me so hard, like in my stomach, or to the point of I would literally want to throw up around certain people, um, I had to start realizing this is more than me just, trying to pass it. I would try to placate it or just try to push it aside and say, I'm just making this up. But when it would happen over and over and over so many times, I had to honor it. And it was a lot of people in the industry of like music, politics. So I would get a really bad feeling of wanting to throw up immediately in certain people's energies. And that's when I would know, oh, this is a dark soul. And for me, I could also see entities in around them, or even in their eyes, like their eyes would shift a little bit. So when I'd look into their space, they would have like this weird shifting. So I was like, oh, they have an entity in it. on them. So I didn't know who I would always be speaking with. Like, and these were subtle things. So in the nightclub world, there's like music and lights, and it's super over sensory for me. But when I would get that wanting to throw up with my next step, I would really start getting scared at first because I said, oh, this person can harm me. And that's when I also, it would be random too. It would be just really random people, a lot of athletes and stuff. And that's when I could know whether I had to be on high alert or I had to, and pretend I didn't notice anything and just be like a zombie type person, or if I could relax and say, this is the good person. So I think it was really more of a protection energy, but like I could tell if someone was a murderer, like weird stuff. And because Miami's Miami, you come across people like that. There was a lot of, let's say drug dealers and stuff that they would have to murder people to keep their let's say competition out of the way. And I knew some of them personally because in the nightclub world there was a lot of drugs, there was a lot of people selling, and it was really sad because I a lot of people passed, like whether they overdosed or whether they got murdered for doing stuff that led them down that path. It was really fascinating. So I mean, I was a young, naive, silly 21-year-old, like not knowing much about the world. I mean, I still traveled a lot when I was a kid and I was fortunate, but when I hit against people that were like literally killers, that's when I would get scared and say, wow, I'm dealing with a whole different group.
And so would any of the people would we recognize any of the people that you encountered if you can share those names?
Yeah, I mean, so ironically, like I served Puff Daddy when he was dating J Lo, and I had already met her in the massage world. She was just very into herself, and I think people in that realm have to be. So in the massage therapy world, I had to give her a massage, and she was annoyed because I didn't know who she was. I didn't really care who she was, so I never like bowed down to people. So she didn't like me from that time. And then when I bumped into them, I had to serve them in the nightclub world. I wanted to throw up right when I met him. And I met him a few times because I would have to serve a lot of different artists multiple times because that was their playground. So every time it would happen where I literally was like, I can't even be within 2 feet or 3 feet or 10 feet of this person without wanting to throw up. So with him especially, it was so dark. It was as dark as I met Hillary and on the vineyard when I was a teenager. I took care of a 90-year-old, and it was that bad. It was as bad as that. So
Wow,
it
that's
was
pretty
what
bad.
it was so bad. Yeah.
Wow.
Okay, so I want to ask you about the experience with Hillary too, but so look, what was you said you had a friend who explained to you that he also knew Puff Daddy and he said, "Oh yeah, he's not even human. He sold his soul," or something along
Yeah.
those lines. Can you explain that?
So, okay, in the nightclub world, as a VIP cocktail waitress, which is sounds so silly, but it's just the silliness of it all. You have to give out your phone number and make sure you book your tables because the more tables you have, obviously, the more money you can make. And so, if you have a consistent group of people coming, then you get to know them. You end up meeting their wives or their sidekicks and their girlfriends, and so you end up knowing a lot about people just from that world because if that's I was in that world 5 nights a week pretty much. So with one of my regulars, I also still did massage. So I would go to his condo on the beach and I would give him a massage and his girlfriends and whatever. So he started to tell me because I asked him because he was from New York and he was a businessman himself and he was trying to dive into the music world. Um, but he didn't do so great in it. He was more of he had his own clothing company. And so I would ask him, what's up with Puffy? Because every time I'm in his presence, like I really want to throw up. Like it's horrible. And he goes, oh, I'm helping him with his clothing line. I don't think that guy's real or he sold his soul because he said, if you in the industry, especially the entertainment industry or musician, world, you have to get that big. He's like, you have to sell your soul. And so I would thought, okay, I've heard that before, and I've always dove into conspiracy theories since I was young. But I said, really, do you really feel that? And he said, yeah. He said, and I'm going to tell you why. And he said, I had to fly on his private jet a few times to help him launch his, I don't remember his clothing line now, but he was helping to launch it for him. And he said the guy didn't sleep. Like he literally was up 4 days and he slept maybe 4 hours. He said he would sleep on the plane on like the ground, but he wouldn't hardly sleep the whole time. And he's like, I was exhausted. Like, but he said there was something odd about it, and he always could just pop back up, and it was like he was not human. And so that's when I started to realize too, okay, when someone does sell their soul, something else is running them, or many entities. And then I would see it in the nightclub world with, I mean, not just the bouncers. And I don't mean to say, it is what it is. They were trying to make a living, and a lot of them were drug dealers, but not all, of course. But I could see there was always like a shifty energy around them that wasn't normal. And when I would massage people, I also would get that same feeling of fear of, oh my God, this person could harm me immediately. Kind of like animals, like if you could tell in the forest, like if there's a large animal around, you can feel it. You don't need to know, you don't need to see it. You just feel it as if
Right.
you're being hunted. That's the feeling I would get every time. And even in the massage world, like all my body would be goosebumps. Like I would not feel normal in their presence. And I would literally start praying because I pray and I try to shield myself, protect myself, and connect to God. And I say my prayers, and then I do my shields, and I put light around me and love, and that's when but I get so nervous. That's why I know there's something, it's different.
Hmm.
Yeah, I think a lot of these celebrities, when they sell their soul, it's like they're making an agreement for that, but it's like also to allow these demonic entities to take them over, to possess them. And that's why a lot of them, you watch their behavior and you feel their energy, like you just said, in person, and it feels very demonic, feels very dark, and it looks like a demon possessed person. That's why, because they actually are, I think, a
Hmm.
lot of the time.
Well, and I'll just mention too, like I met Beyonce when she was part of that girl group. Oh my God, I'm so bad with names. But it was when they were young, and there was like three of them, Destiny's Child.
Hmm.
Yeah,
And she was super sweet and young, and it was before she and Jay-Z started, I guess, dating and stuff. And there was such an innocence there. I didn't like, she was super kind and like a normal, kind
more
person.
normal. Yeah,
And then I remember a few years later, I had to serve Jay-Z, and there was like a cold, weird energy around him. And I would always try to figure out why I felt a different way around certain people. And then as I never followed, let's say Beyonce's music or anything, but when I started to research how they do give themselves over to these demons, Beyonce even put it in one of her videos. Um, and they were showing how she lets her soul go, and then another soul ends up, and because
right.
they when it's just everything's so odd. Like, because I would go to all the Miami Heat games, and there'd be certain celebrities that would literally be stone cold, staring off, like going like this, and not even being aware of their environment. And then I call, their handler or whoever is controlling them would be sitting there, like knocking them to get them out of that trance, because they'd be on TV being like shown this weird trance like state. So it's just very strange. So that's why too, I was always a researcher myself, because I wanted to know, how are there so many, why do they all act very similar? I would like play with LeBron James, and before he went down the whole route with Jay-Z and stuff, like he was kind of, I don't know, I don't even know what normal is anymore, but he wasn't as like, he wasn't doing all his hand symbols and all that. And then once he joined with Jay-Z, it was all the whatever they're bowing down to. I mean, it's just a dark, dark force. And so that's when too he wouldn't speak to certain people on the team, and he treated people that he literally was with every day um poorly. Like he changed his energy. He wouldn't talk to anyone like beneath him. And I was just like, oh gosh, they really change everything once they bow down to that dark energy. It's like they change their whole personality. They won't even be bothered with. It's just a different world. It's just very different.
Right. Yeah.
Right. That's why.
We've seen a number of videos where a few Conor McGregor, Eminem, Shaquille O'Neal, people who just trance out like that, and their handler like has to almost like turn
Bill
them back on.
Clinton.
Yeah.
Remember that one of Bill
Yeah. Bill
Clinton?
Clinton. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Perry, what was that girl's name?
Katy Perry.
Katy Perry.
Yeah.
Katy Perry. Yep.
Right.
And then
Taylor Swift. We're seeing, now it's like she's all, it's crazy.
yeah, and that's when I started researching MK Ultra and like how they do it, how they overcome and how they can snap. Because like I would see certain signals that they would do so that the person would perform. And not to take away out of their entertainment value or all of that, but it's different. It's a different energy. It's not normal.
Right. So back in the massage world, that's when you first started noticing that these people were carrying entities, I guess you could say. And you even mentioned to me that some of them you didn't even think were human at all. Like, can you explain what you were seeing?
So yeah, because I would end up leaving the massage world and then just going into the nightclub world, and I would get burnt out in both because both were pretty traumatic. In Miami, like I went into it thinking I could help people heal and help get balance their energy so they could heal. And not everybody wanted that. It was just Miami's a wild, crazy place. So I would be like, I can't do this anymore. Let me leave this. But when I would touch some people in certain spas, and these were high-end spas, like they were, one was a members only, meaning like you're not going to get somebody off the street. That's just they had to. If I said that they did something inappropriate, they would lose their membership. So thankfully, I was more protected. Like whereas other places, they would just act crazy and they could accuse you of doing whatever, and you're just like this tiny little thing, waiting for them to kill you or something. That's how scared I got. So that's why I would go back and forth. In the nightclub world, I always had a bouncer or something if somebody acted inappropriately. But when I would touch people, sometimes I could see their entity come in too with them, or some of them prayed to certain things that were like I saw jinns. I don't know if you heard of those.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I would always say this room is only allowed with love and light. And sometimes some of the people's jinns would stay there. So that's something and so I would just put a protective force around me, around the person. And it was awkward because I could see this thing the whole time I was working on the person. But because I said, if you're only allowed here in love and light, and they didn't leave, then I was like, okay, I don't need to be scared. But I didn't like it. So then I started commanding that they're not allowed even in the room. So those were not bad, but they were just scary because I wasn't used to seeing the different energy types. When I would touch someone that didn't feel human, I literally didn't see pores on their skin. And I would look because I got so scared. I was like, this person is gonna like kill me. Like that's how scared I would get. And then I would look and I'm like, they don't have hair on their body, they don't have pores. And so I was like, so I would ask too, because I started to learn how to ask, is this person, something, or am I making this up in my head? And if I got a no, then I would say, okay, is this person a clone? Because I believe a lot of people are clones too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they don't have souls. So that one person that I definitely felt wasn't human, that I asked my coworker, I'm like, because their eyes were a different color too. Like it wasn't a normal color eye. I'm like, do you feel if that's human? Because she was sensitive too. And she's like, no, that's not a normal. I don't know what that is, but it's something not normal at all. And you could tell from behind, because we've had a lot of transitional like trannies and all that. And
Mm.
it's different. I still felt that person had a soul, if that makes sense.
Right.
Right.
So you would ask spirit or your guides, like, is this a clone? And they would say yes.
Yeah, I guess not. And that's the other thing, because I would people's relatives would show up too during the treatment. And so this is too when I used to run from my sensitive abilities to the point I would drink way too much, thinking that would stop it, and that just made it worse because then I'd see the lower dimensional stuff. So that's when I had to start asking, is this? Am I making this up? Is this person helping the person, and then is this the family's lineages? Because that's when I learned, because I was trying to also help people heal ancestry, karmic energy.
Right.
And sometimes, like when, let's say somebody has consistently suicides or war, we all have, our ancestors most times in our lineage, we have war energy. And so you can see, I would always start to ask, well, where's your origin? Where are you coming from? Um, Actually, one story I'll tell you, which I don't know if I told you, Tyler, when we just randomly talk. I had one client, he was insanely wealthy. He lived on Fisher Island, so I'd have to take a ferry to his house. And he was really kind because he would let me do 45 minutes worth of energy work before I would massage him. And he let me open his Akashic records multiple times. Um, and in one of his lives, he was quartered. So energetically, he had to put like the basically it was like this white rope went through all of his limbs and he tried to heal his energy because in this lifetime he was kind of not balanced, let's say. And so I once went to his house, got to his place, and opened up to the energy, and there were two mothers and three children in the room, spirit wise. And I never had seen that in his energy. And I worked on him once or twice a week. And so I said, okay, what's going on? So normally I can clear energy because he was a collection, he'd collect art, and energy had come once from an art piece. And so I kind of freaked out because I was like, what's going on? And so I had to clear it and put it into the light. But I asked what he's supposed to do next time he buys a big expensive piece of art. And they said he needs to clear it and sage it and honor it, but leave all the energy from the artist. Because I asked, where did this come from? And it came from the artist was kind of like a clown energy, and the clown energy showed up in the room. So that's when I realized, oh, we should really be really careful of what we're bringing into our house. So I just shared because he would always ask, what did you see? What do I need to know? So I'd share all that. But this was a whole different experience. And I normally could clear energy. He traveled a lot. So I could clear energy off of him. Once he went to a Holocaust museum in Europe, and I didn't clear myself after I cleared his house and him after he had just came back from his trip and he asked for a treatment. So when I went home, I dreamt I was being burned alive the whole night, and it was just this weird energy. And so I actually had to check the next day if he was alive because I thought he was not there anymore because the energy was so intense. And it was just, he picked up energy at these museums, and I didn't clear myself proper. Like I didn't release him to the light. So anyway, long story short, I end up going and seeing these energies. I couldn't clear them. So I said, that's weird. I normally can clear his stuff. I have no problem. So I kept working in the room and I kept asking. I call in Archangel Michael sometimes. I call in angelic energy to help. Nothing was clearing. So I said, well, I don't know what else to do. Maybe you're supposed to be with him. So after the treatment, he said, what did you see? And I said, what did you do different? Because there's energy here that's not normal. That's not normally here, and it's not yours. And he said, well, I just got stem cell therapy in my shoulder. I went to the best doctor in the world. I paid a lot of money, and um, it's supposed to heal me. And I said, okay, do you know where the tissue came from? And he's sensitive too. So he was like, what did you see? And I had already asked the energy where it came from. This was like probably 10 years ago. Um, the energy said it was on the black market and it was Planned Parenthood.
Oh, yeah, that
Wow.
explains.
Yeah, so I was so naive then too, because I didn't go down that rabbit hole yet. So I said, what do you mean Planned Parenthood? And they were showing there's a black market where you can get stem cells from aborted fetuses and all this stuff. And they're using that. And and it's this whole underground market. So I was like, gosh, and I didn't know this at the time. So I was like, that's weird. So I remembered it clearly. So I was like, I'll have to research after, because that's what usually would happen. Energy would show up and then I'd research after, and then I'd find, holy moly, this is insane. There's a truth behind it. And there's a whole insane market. So when he said, tell me what you saw. I said, I saw two mothers and three infants. And one of the mothers was mentally insane. And because she kept walking around the room and she was clearly, there was something wrong with her. And I said, I'm sorry, I couldn't clear it. And I said, but I asked what you're supposed to do with this energy. And your guide said, you need to honor and thank that energy for trying to help you heal, and just give thanks to it and let it go. Let it go to the light so it can be reincarnated and go where it needs to go. It doesn't need to be with you anymore, but you have to give thanks and honor it. And he said, oh, okay. And he's like, what were they, black babies? And I said, yeah, they were actually. It was a black family. It was a black women and black children. And so I was really sad by it after, because I was like, I didn't realize too, like, I was like, gosh, that's when I researched too, Planned Parenthood and all the different areas that they're located and why they push these sacrificial rituals so much and in certain cultures. And so, again, my paradigm wasn't always, I got shifted a lot with the energy work, and I was grateful, but then I would mourn. And the next week I went and the energy was still there because he didn't do his homework. He didn't do his spiritual homework. He didn't honor them and thank them. So I asked a girlfriend that also is sensitive. I said, well, am I allowed to clear it? Because it's not clearing. So does that mean I'm not allowed? And she said, no, he actually hasn't done his homework and his spiritual work. So that's for him. It's going to now be in his karma. You don't have to do anything. You can only do so much. And that's when I said, oh, yeah, that's right. Like that, I can't do other people's homework. And that's when because I've always been a people pleaser in terms of I want to help and help as much as I can, to exhausting myself. And that's when I realized too, oh gosh, people have their own stuff to do. I have my own homework, they have theirs. And you have to give them that spiritual lesson.
Hmm.
Like I realized too, I was trying to do too much.
Right. So, I mean,
Yeah.
that makes you wonder how many people are walking around, which we've had this conversation before, Aaron, but how many people are walking around with attachments like that from something like stem cell therapy that you would have no way of knowing. If somebody isn't on that spiritual path, they're carrying around stuff that, I mean, who knows what kind of spiritual baggage they're dragging around with them. And it could be
Right.
manipulating their behavior in ways they don't even comprehend.
Well, and that's why too, I realize why some cultures or some, let's say, spiritual groups don't want blood transfusions. And that's when I learned too, this whole blood magic, and the jab, it was a blood magic ritual. It was blood and it was human DNA put into another human DNA. And that's when I realized, oh, this is going to be harder to clear, because now you're putting in other DNA into your own blood, and it's blood magic. And that's why the enemy is so smart with this. Like this is, it's kind of genius in the sick way, but it's also because in the energy world, I had never had problems clearing people before that incident. And then with the jab, I had a hard time clearing entities off people. And that's when I say, gosh, why? And that's when my acupuncturist was like, this is blood magic. And I'm like, oh gosh, you're so right. I forgot. You're right.
So, so you saw entities like attached to people through the jab, is what you're saying?
Yeah, so that's the other weird thing. So I had clients in the massage world, like I had clients, thankfully, that would keep that once a week I go to their homes, or once every week. So for 5 years, I would have clients, 10, maybe 8 years, 10 years sometimes. Um, because they would have their whole system, they would have a massage room set up, and I could just show up. But I stopped doing massage because actually my regulars started getting jabbed, and I always would clear their energy once a week. So I knew I could go into their home and it would be something I could do quickly. It was no big deal. But when I went after they got the jab, their energy would be different. I was almost like I would hit a huge wall energetically. When I'd open up to the energy, I would get tingling, horrible, like I would get pokes up and down my spine. And it was almost like mosquito bites or like just jabs up and down my spine. And it would be so horrific. It would be like an hour and a half of torture. And then I would realize, oh, there's an entity here and it's attacking me because I'm trying to clear it. And I didn't know how to, I just didn't, I called in my resources, my archangels, my whole group of energy that I normally would work with. And I was like, this is torture for me. And I would get hot. It would be so painful for me. And then I would ask, what'd you do the different this week? I already knew because they already showed me where the energy came from. It came from the jab. And the saddest part that I had to mourn, because I had to mourn a lot of people that was like, that's their choice. This is their lesson. They allowed this. The entity would be like, I saw it as driving a car. The entity would be driving their soul, their body in the driver's seat. Their soul would be out either behind their body outside of it or somewhere in the back. And they didn't have like their own authority anymore. And this entity would be driving now their whole soul. And that's when their personality would change. It wouldn't be just that this entity was hanging around. It was they were thinking about cheating on their fiance. They had and telling me about it. Like they would tell me, "Oh, I could just do the line of coke and sleep with these whores around me." And it was speaking a language that was low vibrational. And these were spiritual people that a week earlier didn't have that thought process nor the language, that low vibrational, "Oh, I'm just gonna, you know, fuck this girl on the boat and my girlfriend, my fiance won't even find out." And it was not them. Like that's when I got so sad. I was like, oh, they got taken. They got totally taken.
So these would be
Yeah.
people that you worked on for years potentially, and then overnight with the jab, the vaccine. We don't have to say jab anymore.
Yeah.
With the
Yeah.
vaccine, they were different. They were changed, so the vaccine was a way to introduce an entity to take over soul this person.
Yeah. And that's when I finally, because I would cry a lot to release. Like I lived by the ocean, so I would paddleboard every day and just go and release the energy and try to clear myself. Because if I didn't clear myself, I would sleep all night with their dreams or nightmares about what their energy was. So I would have to do my diligence, and I'd go out to the paddleboard in the middle of the bay and just cry. But then manatees would show up, or stingrays, or dolphins to let me, So I was like, "Thank you. Okay, I'm going to be okay." But that's when I realized I literally it just popped in my head. I'm like, wow, Satan, devil, whatever, at lower frequencies going on, these darker forces. I was like, they just stole a billion souls or a million or however many. But it just clicked that I was like, wow, they just won. They just got a whole bunch of new souls on their side. Like they stole them or
Yeah.
I mean, I do believe
Hijacked.
hijacked. Well, and that's the sad part because I feel like a lot of the people, and because everyone's saying, well, that was their free will. And I understand that part. I totally get it. But I didn't think a lot of people had like that switch that turned on that said, holy shit, we're at war. I had that switch immediately because it just showed up, thank God. But a lot of people, like, I was trying to be a whistleblower and I lost a lot of friends and family. But at the same time, I'm like, okay, I have to honor their soul's journey. But I think for a lot of people that were like, well, I'm doing it because I need to keep my job because I have 3 kids, and they didn't have that strength of warrior, like I'd rather die than take that thing,
Right.
Mhm.
which it was in me, but
Me
I
too.
was like,
Me too.
Same.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so that's when I was like, then I had to rationalize. I was like, well, maybe because I did open up to the earth's energy, and I was like, okay, there was a plan of a lot of souls exiting, but I just got sad that they got hijacked to the other side, the darker forces.
Mhm.
But then I was like, okay, maybe this is part of it. Maybe they weren't meant to stay in the high vibrational energies.
So through the Akashic records, you mentioned that information started coming through that was helping you understand that these people could actually return and heal from taking the vaccine. And but it would have to be like up to them, right?
Yeah, so that was the other thing. So I stopped massaging and I was like, okay. And thankfully I had done real estate on the side just to as a side job because friends and family needed help and so I was like, how am I going to transition out of this career that I had it allowed me to kite surf almost every day. It allowed me to play in the realm I wanted to play in. So and that was to me the ocean. So I was like, how am I going to transition and do this? And I said, okay, real estate. Um, but the Akashic records, I started to do I don't know, gosh, maybe 9 or 10 years ago. And first few years I never charged because I wanted to become really confident and I wanted to gift it to people too, so I can feel like how just to feel more confident and relaxed and make sure that what I was sharing was truly genuine. Um, and so I said, all right, well, let me at least get my website together for the Akashic so I can start doing that more. But when I opened up to people who had the jab, I would get attacked. Like in terms of energy, I'd still feel that same attack. I'd take on headaches. I'd take on their pain in their body. And so then I would say, okay, well, let me just block myself. And so I had to put up guidelines. Let me only feel the pain for 5 seconds as a more of a wisdom, let's say, energy of this is what's happening in that person's body. But I was scared that the Akashic record I wasn't going to be able to do because it was so painful physically for me. But when I would stay in it longer and say, okay, just give me the pain from a few seconds as reference points. And then because they would ask, how can I heal? Oh my gosh, this one lady called about her son in New York. They I asked his higher self if I could open up to his energy because you're only allowed there's rules, you're not
Right.
allowed to just open up anyone's energy. But I asked his higher self, can I open up? And they said yes. This was fascinating. They showed his blood was like tar. It showed a what are those crabs in the ocean that they used to have them in Cape Cod all the time. They're these beautiful, not horseshoe crabs. They're like a big dome and they have a little tail. Are they horseshoe crabs?
I don't
I
know.
think
Yeah.
they're horseshoe crabs. Yeah.
Yeah. They showed blue blood from a horseshoe crab would be better he needs a blood transfusion is what they were showing. Because she asked why her son was having debilitating migraines to the point he couldn't work, he couldn't do anything. And they showed he got the jab, and then once he got the vax, his everything went toxic. And to me, the energy, like a heavy metal toxicity in someone's body, it usually shows like as a black. It's a little dark energy. Like there's
Hmm.
certain pictures I get to see when something's toxic, but for him, it was just pure like tar almost in his veins. And they showed a horseshoe crab's blood would have helped this person, and it actually would have been better blood than what he has. He has completely fully toxic. And then they put a metal kind of like a helmet over his third eye, like energetically. And then they said that this is causing his migraines. And his guide said he needs to start doing chlorophyll, spirulina. He needs to start doing blood cleansing, heavy metal cleansing, and certain allergies so that the heavy metal wouldn't be uploaded in the digestive tract and the intestinal tract. It would be pulled out. So like binding energy. So I would write this stuff down and then try to do like PubMed searches just to try to see. And then I found out the horseshoe crab especially in Massachusetts, they're going extinct because the scientists for the pharmaceutical companies, they're taking the blood and doing all these experiments with it because I guess there's something about this beautiful animal, and they puncture, I think, the heart of the animal to take the blood, and then only like 30% survive when they try to reintroduce it back. Anyway, long story short, they're executing
Wow.
these poor animals in behalf of the name of pharmaceutical for research. And I'm just like, it was just a crazy rabbit hole. But people's energy was saying you can detox from this. And I even had someone that had AIDS or HIV, and his guide said he could totally clear himself of it. And he was supposed to be on a strict diet of like certain juices and high vibrational foods and sprouts and all these high, to me, they were like almost lime green energy, like chlorophyll and spirulina and stuff. He didn't follow it. And but anyway, but with certain people that got the vax, they had to align themselves back with God. They have to, like, like many multiple people's guides said, you have to ask to realign your DNA back to God's given DNA, and to throughout the day, like, pray and give thanks and ask for forgiveness and almost bow down in humbleness to say, please realign me to God's given DNA, reactivate me back to God's alignment, God's DNA. So but it was a prayer that they were supposed to do multiple times a day, but for months, in order to clear themselves and get back into the alignment with God and nature. People were supposed to go lay down on the earth multiple times a day to realign their energy fields.
Wow. Yeah,
Yeah.
the most interesting thing to me with the vaccine. Whenever it was really coming out, everyone was sharing stuff all over the internet, right? People
Yeah.
were coming out, and I was sharing all kinds of stuff actually, and surprisingly, like, it wasn't getting flagged or anything. And the one post that actually got removed and Instagram gave me like a warning, or an account removal warning, was a post I made that said what they actually don't want you to know about the vaccine is that it's cutting you off from source. It's cutting off your God connection. It was this whole thing about that. That's all it was.
Yeah.
And that's the post that got removed. It
Yeah.
wasn't the ones that I was sharing with all the harmful ingredients and all the statistics and the data. They didn't care about that. But when I tried to tell people that it was cutting you off from source, they're like, nope.
You're because
And
you
Yeah.
were over the target, right?
right.
Yeah. And that's the sad part, because that's when I realized too. I mean, unfortunately, they're masters in their demonic ways. Like,
I know.
Hmm.
I know.
they can actually, and that's why too, because a lot of people's pineal glands will get so cloudy when before, like, if I worked with them before and we could clear it energetically, their guides and energy. I do a lot of I call it, I guess it's like a reboot to the energy system, but usually they can clear all that. It's like a foggy energy around their pineal gland. But with the jab or the vax, it would like be so blocked. So then they couldn't connect to source. They didn't want to. They got this angry, horrible energy around them that was like icky. It's, to me, it's like sticky and icky and and spiky. Um, and it's sad because, like, they don't care. They don't well, I felt a lot of them didn't care that
I,
they were no longer connected.
I understand that because I don't know if I've shared this story many times publicly, but I used to have that same reaction around church and religion, and in particular Jesus. Like, when I would see that name or hear it, I would get aggravated and angry. And I never thought anything about it until after my awakening, and I had cleared all the entities and stuff. But I had a session with Laura Van Tyne. Some of you guys may know who she is, and this entity that she ended up removing, this entity that had been with me my entire life. Actually, it was like a sign to me. And she was like, "Do you know who you are? Do you like?" I'm like, "No." Like, "What do you mean?" She's like, you carry a Christ consciousness. You carry this energy, and this thing was assigned to you to make sure that you never remembered it." And she's like, "Did you ever have like negative reactions around like any Christ?" Like, I was like, "Yeah, actually, like, it's real now that I'm thinking about it." She's like, "Yeah." She's like, "Well, it's gone now." And when she removed this thing, let me tell you, it was like an exorcism. Like, it was like, I, I don't even know how to describe it. Like, my chest was like, I was like hyperventilating and all kinds of stuff. And, after the session, people were like, I walked out and people were like, "Did your eyes change colors?" Like, even my eyes were a different color after it. And but it was there to make sure that I wouldn't remember like who I was and remember the connection with source. And then I got a vision after the end of that at, after that session. I laid down to take a nap because it was exhausting. I closed my eyes and I seen this like reptilian looking like demon thing shrunk all the way down, into a fairy, and he was literally like given a new life to start over as a fairy. And he was like he was all like pouty about it, and he was sitting there like on this tree limb with all these other fairies and like looking at me like, you motherfucker. Like he had gotten like punished and sent, like his punishment was to be like he couldn't be this big dark demon anymore. He was a little tiny powerless fairy. And
Yeah.
anyway, but
That's
it was, yeah.
Well,
Go
fairies
ahead.
are awesome though, so I don't know. I don't think that's a punishment.
Well,
To
you know
him,
what I
it was.
mean though?
yeah,
But
exactly.
it was almost like it was almost like he was allowed to be a fairy with the memory of who he was.
Right,
So like
right.
he was like stuck
To
in that body.
him,
Yeah.
he was.
Oh, funny.
Yeah.
I'm a
Right.
big fan of Steven. But that's so interesting you say that because I also had an attachment on me since I was like a teenager and it was clear, thank God. But I noticed like this is what was really fascinating because I wondered too, maybe I don't know, maybe it did something while I was in the nightclub world, but like certain people would be attracted to me in a weird way of like, oh gosh, like why are they attracted to me?
Super
And
creepy,
what's that?
like in a creepy way.
Yeah, yeah, like in a creepy way. And like some of them were like super powerful or like billionaires that were like, and it was like they would just, and I would, uh, for Miami terms, I was fairly conservative because I grew up in New England and, that puritanical upbringing type. I wasn't like trying to, um, it just, I was a little bit more conservative dressed and stuff than a lot of people around me. And it would be the weirdest thing because they would be super drawn to me in a weird, creepy way. And I was like, and that's when I started doing energy work, I was like, do I have like a symbol on my aura or something that attracts these people? Because I had one energy worker when I was trying to learn past life regressions and trying to open up my senses. Like I think I was like 20, and she said, well, um, you have an attachment that scares like really gentle, kind souls away. And and I was like, wow, that stinks. Why would anyone? And
Yeah.
I always thought, why didn't she help me remove it? But I guess she wasn't allowed to, or who knows. So years later, when I got it removed, all of a sudden, like it was like I was invisible, and it was really odd, like to those creepy, weird energies. And that's when I started to open up other people's energies. I would see if they had dark symbols in their aura, and I would also see that beautiful Christ consciousness. Because I too would be almost like just almost like, I didn't wanna go to a church, I didn't want to hear any of the kind, gentle love that was around me when I would be around people that would say, "God bless you," and all that. I would kinda be like, "Oh," and then after it was cleared, I was like, "Oh my god, God bless you too,
Hmm.
thank you
Right.
so much." Like, it was such a beautiful, like, "Oh my god, you actually blessed me today, thank you, God bless you," and it was such a beautiful honoring, but that's when too, I got to see just there's a heart connection that shows up when you don't have that dark kind of thing around you all the time.
Right. Right. And it was
Right.
explained that it wasn't even there all the time. Like it was just hanging out, not even with me until a situation arose where it would needed to come in and like make sure that like if I was getting too close to remembering or something, that's when it comes in. So thank God that was cleared. But this is such a fascinating conversation. And I want to go backwards all the way to the you meeting Hillary and Bill Clinton and what you saw with them, and then we can move on to some of this stuff that's coming through the Akashic records.
Yeah, so I was a teenager helping a 90-year-old lady on Martha's Vineyard. And it was just a job because used to love the ocean, and so I thought, oh, the vineyard for me it was a magical place as a child. So um I ended up taking care of this 90-year-old, but it was really me just driving her around. And she's in the political realm. Her husband was, I think, one of Rosa Parks' attorneys back in Alabama. And so she was a Southern Belle, and she wrote a book on kind of not going into that Southern Belle lifestyle. And her daughter married the president of University of Pennsylvania. He was at the time, and there was just a lot of political people that would show up. And so I was just I didn't care. All I wanted to do was go to the beach. But They're really into the Clintons, and I guess the 90-year-old's daughter ended up working for Hillary. And the reason why I call her Hillary is because, of course, all the rabbit holes and her darkness, but I didn't know much about them. And I mean, I grew up in Massachusetts, and I'm a recovering liberal, and I'm a proud recovering, like, meaning I'm proud that I don't. It's just a insanity for me
Yeah.
would even think like that, but whatever, it was just around me so much, and I thought I was doing good and justice and all this stuff, and it was like the furthest from the truth. So anyway, excuse me, they had a 90th birthday party for this woman. Lady Bird Johnson was there and all this stuff, and then the next week they had a party for Bill Clinton. And so I was getting 2 dishes for my 9-year-old lady, and then my dish. Someone's next to me saying, "Oh, you're gonna eat all that? Oh, I love your earrings and I love your hair." And I was just kind of like, "What?" And I'm 16. So I look over and it's Bill. And I'm like, "Oh, this guy is interesting." I didn't feel anything though, except I could see this why he can charm people. Like, that's all I got. It was a little too much because I was young and it was a little weird.
Right.
And then I was like, okay, but whatever. And, some creepy old guys can be like that. But it was like just this weird energy. And I was like, but it wasn't like I want to throw up. So I walk up into there's a beautiful outdoor porch and patio, and it's surrounded by all this like beautiful bushes and hedges. So you can't see who's there. And as I'm walking, I get this sickening feeling like I'm going to throw up. And I was like, oh my God, I'm like, I didn't eat anything bad today. Like, why do I feel like this? And every step I took closer, I was like, I'm going to really throw up right now. And as I turned the corner, the 9-year-old lady was sitting right there. And as I'm putting her food down, I look over into the corner and there's this lady just staring out. Nobody's around her. She's staring into the darkness, like just zombified. And it's Hillary. And that's the same energy I got when I met Puff Daddy. Same energy when I met some of the people I knew that were murderers just from the nightclub world. It was the same energy, but hers was so profound because it was like her dark aura was oh God, it was like you could feel it like 30 feet away. It was
Mhm.
so overbearing. It was so heavy on so many scales of like darkness.
Right.
And that was a weird thing. It was just so weird because I didn't know much, I didn't know much at that time. I mean, I gone down some rabbit holes, but I was 16 and just all I wanted to do was go to the ocean. So I didn't really care so much. And then as I researched later, I was like, oh gosh, no wonder.
Hmm.
But
Right. Yeah.
how odd that they celebrated their honeymoon or their anniversaries in Haiti, and then you find out the whole Haitian scandals. And when living in Miami, I didn't know how much different energy there was, and like people that practice Santeria or voodoo and all that. There's a lot of energy that shows up with those practices.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's so, it's interesting. We do all the research and we learn about everything that you're sharing with us, but not often do we get to talk to people who have firsthand experiences and also able to see into, I guess, other dimensions or realms like you are. And like you can. And it's just amazing, I think, to hear like the firsthand accounts because it helps people for one understand like this isn't just like some online theory, right? There's actual
Right.
energetic, like this is a real thing. There's energy behind working through these people that we need to be aware of. And
Mhm.
not just because so we can avoid it, but so we don't allow it into our lives. And right now it's really tricky to navigate because it's everywhere. Like who would have ever thought like getting a jab is going to be allowing an entity attachment, right?
Well, yeah, and that's why too. Like I had done because I thought my whole journey in this lifetime was to reach enlightenment so I wouldn't have to come back. Somehow when I was like 3 or 4, I just remember a thought showing up in my head saying, you have to do this life right. You don't want to come back. Like you don't want to do this over again. It's too hard. So I remember thinking, okay, I have to do this life right. And then of course, like I probably did everything wrong. But um in my 20s, when I was in the nightclub world, I drank heavily because it was so heavy. It was so much for me to deal with because not just the not just the people's energy, but I would pick up in massage world too. I'd pick up their headache or their pain or their trauma. I would know if they were abused, how they were abused. It would be so much overwhelming energy of information that, and I thought it was so private that I was like, I don't want to know these things. So, like, I don't, why are you telling me this? Why are you sharing all this with me? Like, so I would really try to, it was hard for me to date. I would dream my boyfriend's dreams, like to the point of like, and it was weird. I would know if they were cheating on me. I would know, like what shirt they would wear or who it was with. Like I'd see it ahead of time or I'd dream about it. So it was really hard to navigate that world and trying to be a normal, quote unquote. And then now looking back, I'm like honored and I'm so grateful because hopefully I can help someone else, raise their frequency because that's what I learned I had to do in order to not pick up people's pain or suffering or even thoughts that are not mine. I have to ask, is this my thought or is it? And it's like, no, you just walked through someone's room and you picked up all their thoughts. And so, but if I can help share how someone else or help someone else find relief, in whatever way, it's an honor. It just took, like, I literally would love to be a hermit and hide under a rock and like, but, and then I'm like, no, if this is what I'm here for, and then I'll do the work. It's hard. It was hard to get to this place. It was not an easy way because there was a lot of times I was like, why in the world would anyone choose this journey of the seeing all the full spectrum of stuff? Like, oh, and that's why too, when I did ayahuasca, I did it, I wanted to reach enlightenment thinking that was the way. And on like I did it 10 times in 6 months. And on like the ninth or 10th time, I asked, do I need to go to Peru to my shaman to do work there? And they said, no, you'd pick up everyone's dark energy because they're purging and you take it home and you clear the whole place for them. That's not your job. You can reach enlightenment by petting your cat or sitting and watching looking outside at a palm tree. You can reach enlightenment just going within. You don't have to go anywhere. And that's when I finally said, holy moly, I'm doing this all wrong. Like I can just do my own stuff and practice and learn how to be still with all this information and enjoy it. And that's when it kind of shifted in a way of, wow, but the ayahuasca did show me the darker realms of the earth. Like it showed me all like the sex scandal stuff, the women just being chained to the ground, giving birth to sacrificial babies and all that. It showed me a lot of the darker stuff. Like John of God, I was going to go there. And then it showed me all this stuff of the women being just given birth after like the sex slavery. So it was we live in a really fascinating planet, but it's also, it's beautiful too. When you try to raise your frequency and see all that beautiful, divine, godly energy around us, it's spectacular. It's just hard. It was hard for me to get to this place.
Hmm. Wow. I mean, there's so much you said there I want to touch on. Like the whole John of God thing, I actually got chills whenever you said that in a way, like I know in my core that's what was happening. And when you said it, it was just like my body telling me, yeah, that's what was going on. And I've heard other females who are tapped in like you, who one of them was actually, following and John of God and go into like seminars and stuff. And she got really close and then she was shown what happened. And thank God. So she kind of came out as like a whistleblower in a way, you know, but it's true. Yeah. So it's really, really interesting. And then the ayahuasca thing that you said that I was recently I've been invited many times to go do ayahuasca or there's another one and I forgot what it's called, another one, but I've never gone and I recently got invited and it sounded good at first and I was going to do the trip and then I just kept getting steered away from it, and then when we talked and you told me that story I was like, maybe that's why, because I am an empath and I do pick up on people's energies and I know it. Like I've brought stuff home before and I'm like, I think that's what would have happened. I think I might have picked up on something and then you're like, well, you don't have to go anywhere to achieve enlightenment, right? You can just do it right here, like petting a cat or whatever. And it's so true. And I think I was kind of guided away from that trip because of that. And and everything I was feeling, you kind of confirmed. So it's a good lesson for anyone out there that's paying money to go like see these spiritual gurus and you know what I mean and traveling across the world and just dumping thousands and thousands of dollars into expecting this other person to somehow have all the answers, right? And I think that it's just amazing to understand that you don't have to do that.
Well, and I'll give you a warning too, because I didn't know I was such an empath, or I didn't know how to, let's say, navigate the empath world. I saw the dark side of it, and I saw entities show up during the sessions and try to latch on to people. And thankfully, I had a shaman that was saying, "No, you're not welcome here." But I saw so much of other people's journeys that I didn't want to see because I was trying to do my work. And that's a murderer was next to me during the trip. I saw his journey as a child, and it was really sad. And I wanted to do my work, but I was seeing everyone else's stuff, and I would go home so depleted where it took me months, probably years to recover from it. I'm grateful for the experience because I was able to really appreciate my life and honor it and give thanks to it. But it did show me too, especially as an empath, like the woman that, 20 years earlier was trying to teach me past life regressions. She called me out of the blue. I hadn't spoken to her maybe 10 years at that time. Oh, no, no. It was probably 15 years. I hadn't spoken to her. So 15 years later, she calls me and she's like, I don't know what you're doing, but don't do that anymore. It's like I would go into fetal position for 6 hours and just journey. But she said, everyone's opening their chakras and dumping all their stuff there, and you're taking it all home with you. You have to stop. That's not your job. It's killing you. And so from her, she just got a message and she dreamt it that night before or something. And it was just, I was so lost trying to find my way that I thought that was the way. And that's when I realized, she said too, that's an ancient way of tapping in. And, in the Peruvian and the Amazonian energies and all that, the shamanic energy, yes, that's their way. But she's like, that's not the way that's an old way of doing it. You can tap in a gentler, more loving way. And now this is years later, I can say, gosh, yeah, that's so true. Like you can jump into mushrooms or just yoga or just sitting outside hugging a tree and tap in.
Right.
You don't need that. Although I'm not saying it wasn't, fascinating itself, but for those that are sensitive, I would just say be cautious because this woman was going to bring her child there and I was like, what? Like this is not easy stuff. And I know in some cultures that's accepted, but I also saw some people getting harmed with it.
Yeah, I don't think many people consider that they can pick up something and bring it home. Like you're going to clear everything, right? But then you're opening yourself up and the
Mhm.
dark entities are just waiting there to
Waiting.
Yeah,
pounce on a weakness, right? Like
it's
the
it's a powerful
vulnerability.
tool. It's a powerful tool, but if you don't do it in the right way, it can be very dangerous, like you said. And it's not for everyone. It's a tool, and it can be very powerful and very helpful for certain people if that's what they need. But if it's not what you need, then it can be a very negative thing, or it can
Hmm.
just or it's just like you said, there's so many easier and simpler ways to do it, and you don't even need to travel anywhere. It's available to everyone.
It's just it's fascinating, but it's so dark. It's sad because that was the other thing too. When I started to do the ayahuasca, I stopped watching TV. I stopped listening to music because I could tell immediately I would get like this cringe of like if because they would put certain hexes or certain, let's say, I don't know what it would, I guess it's I could feel it of as a hex or a dark energy on TV or music. And that was something too I felt in the nightclub world. I could tell if it was like blessed with good energy or dark energy.
Hmm.
And then I was like, am I going crazy? Like, because I could feel it through the TV of like even just ads. I could feel like, oh, there's a dark energy here. And then I was like, oh, they place it in the music and the TV and the advertisements. It's constantly we're bombarded by it.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
and that's when I was like, oh God, I have to be really careful of what I'm listening because I would literally have to clear every night before I went to bed what I had watched or heard throughout the day. And I was like, this is a lot of extra work. Like this is exhausting.
Right.
And when you go down the music industry world, you'd hear even in the old, Woodstock era, they would put curses on the album to sell more.
Wow.
Right, which is insane to think about.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like it's not just our generation, it's, our parents.
Well,
Right.
I mean, in some of the old music, it's obvious. Like in the Rolling Stones, it's if you look at a lot of their album names, song names, lyrics, it's like talking about Satan and the devil and
Right.
selling your soul to and like all kinds of. It's like in your face.
Yeah. And
Um,
even John Lennon
and the Beatles, even right.
yeah,
John
remember
Lennon,
the album or remember the photo with them with the dead
The
babies?
the
babies. Yeah.
babies
Yeah. It
mutilated.
was
Yeah,
horrible.
yeah.
And I think it was a documentary of one of the Rolling Stones guys, the guitarist, I can't think right now. The raspy voice. Oh my
Keith
God.
Richards. Keith
Yeah.
Thank you.
Richards.
Yeah.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Yes. Thank you. Um, I watched part of it and I was like, I saw him do something right before right before they were preparing for one of the stadium events or something. And he started doing some hand movements and something with some sort of I don't know if it was a piece of wood, it was something. And he started doing some stuff and they just did a quick maybe few second clip of it. And I was like, "Oh, he's practicing black magic." And
Yeah.
I was like, "Oh, that's fascinating." And then they were saying that um so they would hang out with certain witches and anyway, it was just interesting because I was like, "Oh my gosh, these people are practicing black magic like all over the place." And that
Yeah.
it's just fascinating because I didn't realize it was that much in our face. And I was
I
like,
mean,
"Oh, yeah."
Black Sabbath, like the name
Right.
of the band.
Right.
Come on, like come on,
Right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Ozzy Osbourne. Yeah, come on,
Yeah.
bites the
Yeah.
head off the bat. Yeah,
I feel bad for, well, you don't know, like getting when you like that type of music when you're younger,
right,
yeah, I
right.
like it because, oh, that's a cool guitar
You
riff.
just like the music,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
don't know any of that stuff, right?
Right. But even still, like, I'm like, damn, I wish there was a different intention behind this song because like, I still like it,
I know, I do too. I still
Right.
love. I
Right.
love a ton of Black Sabbath stuff, but
Right.
now I'm like, oh man, yeah,
Yeah.
I know, and that's the thing. Like even with the Rolling Stones, I'm like, oh, I used to, because it gets you going in another way, and then I'm like, oh, but you just know in the back of your head, oh
Right.
gosh, oh well,
right.
Right. Yeah. Well, the gods of rock are real. That's the thing that they don't tell you. So you are helping people, by the way, because you offered me a free session before this, just so I can kind of see what you do. And let me tell you, like it really was life changing. And I'm not just saying that, and I'm going to explain why. I had been I had been holding myself back in ways I didn't realize, and through your session, you helped me understand that there were a number of chords connected to me from people in past relationships, right? And energetically, it was stopping me from seeing forward. And I won't get into details, but what happened in the session was life altering, and it was like the weight was just lifted, and I didn't realize the magnitude of it until like a week or two later, reflecting on how much better I felt and how much my life I just like was moving forward now, and I didn't have these chains behind me like I was dragging, and I didn't realize. I thought I was doing good, I just you don't understand. It's like the people who don't understand, they don't know they're under a spell until they're not under the spell, right?
Right, right.
That's kind of how it felt, but it was more of like the energetic chord thing. And anyway, there was a whole number of other things that happened during that session, but uh it's it was amazing, and I wasn't expecting it, and I'm so grateful for it. And the more I got to talk to you, I was super excited to do this interview. So anyone listening, I highly recommend reaching out to Leah. Her website is leahraylight.com, correct? And all the information is there. But I just wanted to let you know, like you're doing something right and you are helping people. And I don't think any of those experiences you had were a waste of time or, you shouldn't regret any of it because you learned so much. Like what you're sharing with us today can't be taught. Like that has to be lived and experienced. So I think I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And Aaron, I want to offer you one too, so you can experience.
Oh,
So,
thank you so much. Yeah, thank you.
so what through the Akashic records, what kind of information comes through about our planet and where we're going as a humanity? If stuff comes through
Yeah.
like that.
Well, it's funny because like I used to go into my records every day just to kind of realign myself and just get myself in a beautiful, calmer space. Because for me, I always say I kind of go up there and energetically I just feel lighter. But so lately I haven't been going into my stuff. I used to go into my stuff during the lockdown to try to ask how I can help with the earth in terms of energy. Because like when I would try to send love and light to the energy of the earth, I would kind of see like these pockets of like almost like vortexes to help people ascend or raise their frequency to like a higher 4D, 5D energy. And then like a darker energy would come and shut down these little pockets. So it was, so I would try to do a lot of energy where I would try to ask for higher vibrational energy so we all can kind of raise our frequency. Because for me, when I do the Akashic records, and even just since I've been doing them more, I used to do them every day, and now it just kind of fluctuates with timing. But I feel better. I feel lighter. I feel higher vibrational. And so, even with you saying that, I'm just grateful that it helped you in a way where you feel lighter, you feel less cords. Because um, I don't do my homework. I should be doing like I should be cutting my cords and raising my frequency all the time. But it's something we all can access. So I want everyone to know that they can access their own records. Eventually, I would like to teach people. I teach people. I've taught classes on how people can access their records and other people's records as a class. But basically, in terms of the earth energy or what's happening on our planet, other people, when I open up their guides, they ask those questions. So I'm now going to just share what they have said because I haven't asked my stuff recently. But like one woman, she works she's not in the military, but she works as an engineer in with the military. And one of her coworkers who's in the military said, "You really need to start getting ready. There's something that's about to happen. You know, men might be deployed." And he was there. I think they're in Texas at the moment. And so she was frantic because her boyfriend isn't, he refused to get the job. So he left the military. So she asked, is there something about to happen? And so energetically, her guides just showed, you know, looks like more false flags showing up at the end of this month, beginning of next in April, beginning of April, but they showed more overseas war showing up. And then they showed that it didn't look like on like an American land. That was going to be a lot of bloodshed, but it was going to be overseas, more in like Asian culture countries, but it was also China was going to do some sort of invasion type energy. So she checked in 3 times about the energy. And so that's something that, obviously we have false flags all the time and everything's, crazy that's
Mhm.
happening with our all the weather harnessing and all the lasers and stuff that's showing up. But in terms of like someone was asking, another client called to ask about the election and it's so this is why I kind of like to it's really fascinating for me because I'm working with their guides. So with hypnotherapy, I do QHHT hypnotherapy. And I believe that's kind of like a collectiveness that shows up. So when I'm working one-on-one with someone's guides, someone might have one information and someone else's guides might have a different information, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but when it's hypnotherapy, I feel like it's also the collective consciousness. So they're tapping in. So there's many ways of tapping in. So that's why I always wonder too, like if her guides were telling her that just so that she could, because she was supposed to go on a trip and she wants to have a baby. So I'm wondering if they're told her those specific time frames so that she could hurry up and go on her trip and um still believe in having a baby versus someone else that had. So that's why I always get, because I believe time is, an illusion. So that's why I'm always kind of skeptical about sharing specifics with certain peoples, because I feel that sometimes people need to hear certain things so that they get motivated in their own way. Like for her to start prepping more and just to enjoy her surroundings more. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and that's
Yeah.
actually a very valuable information because I think that's true, and I've experienced it myself. Like we interview a lot of people, and like not everything that comes through from every single person can be true. Like sometimes it's just like why this person's saying this person's saying that, polar opposites. And like sometimes neither of them actually end up happening or neither of them are true. And it's like maybe people are getting information specific to their mission and specific something they need to hear in that moment for them. But the problem is that people like have a session with somebody and then they go online and they share it as truth. Like, I saw this from spirit, this is going to happen, this is the truth. But then, that's how things kind of get, the waters get muddied, as we could say. So I think it's important to understand that if you are getting information, it might not be information that you need to share with everybody on the internet, but just understand that it's something that you need to know for you personally to navigate whatever you're going through.
Well, and thank you for saying that, because I think what happens is we all have our own individual triggers, right? So like that fear of her, because it was going to be, she was either going to take a trip in February or in April. And for her guides to say something was going to happen in the beginning of April, it triggered her to take the trip in February and have a beautiful experience with her partner to the point where they want to move now to that place. So had she not had and that's why too, maybe that was just true for her. And maybe it might not happen in April, but because her guide said it and they told her 3 different sessions, get ready, something's about to happen. But she's actually living more in the moment, and she's living more in the moment of, let me embrace the love I have with this person to the point of I want to make a child with this person. And so I was like, gosh, maybe that was the child's energy also showing up so that it could have a perfect time to show up in the planet.
Yeah, and
Because
it could go
sorry.
ahead.
Well, no, because other people, spirits show up for some people because they want to actually be part of that family. So they actually ask, can I, like a baby spirit will show up a lot for some people that are trying to get pregnant or have, or the baby will show up and then the doctors will tell them 2 weeks later that they're pregnant. So it's really fascinating, the timing.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, it could be. I mean, who knows? Like the guides, your guides could be playing on your triggers. Like they know they like. What if your guides are intentionally giving you misinformation, knowing that it's gonna get you motivated? Like, okay, this
Right.
person like they thrive in this way or that way, so we're gonna give them this information that we know is gonna light a fire under their ass. And then the moment comes and goes, and they can make up any reason in their head why it didn't happen, and then there's a lesson in that too. Then they have to realize, oh, okay, so not everything that comes through is dead accurate, but maybe I changed the outcome by starting to live differently and being present, you know.
Yes. And the only reason why I also I tried for a long time to figure out how it all works because I'm just learning as I go. And I get confused myself. Like when I come back to the energy of just me, I always ask her my own questions because I'll have clients too. And this is just an example. I had 2 neighbors that were working together, like one was helping the other and as an employee. And they had a very sisterly energy and they cared for each other deeply. And how funny that you mentioned, Aaron, the beautiful fairy realm that showed up for both of them. And it was a beautiful, kind, loving energy of come play out in the woods because they both had this fairy energy around them. And And it was really, it's kind of sounds a little out there, but we are multidimensional, right? But that doesn't always show up in people's energies, let's just say. But this magical kind of fairy energy showed up, and one woman wanted to kind of make it more of a profit to bring people out to the woods because of their backyard. There was a lot of fairy lights and weird stuff happening. And she wanted to make it almost like a freak show energy of profit thing. And the neighbor was like, no way. Like, this is sacred. Like, it's an honor for them to show themselves to us. Like, this is not something we can do. And I literally had one session with one woman one day and one the next day. And the one that was trying to make it a freak show, her guides were saying, you're doing everything great. You're doing everything fine. She's not, the energy between the two of you isn't working anymore. So you can release each other. And it was almost like it was like looking at the neighbor as, oh, this is not really your friend anymore. And they were like sisterly kind of love energy. And then the next day, almost the same message showed up for the other woman with saying she's not you have to be careful in her energy. She's not trustworthy anymore. And she's not kind and she's not all these things. And I was like, I just was in both of their energies. And these women just because I feel people's energy when I'm in the records, I was like, they felt really kind, loving women. And both of the women's energy was like enemy, enemy, enemy. You can't trust this person anymore. So it took me weeks to figure it out because I felt like, is this accurate?
Right.
Like I didn't feel a dark energy with either of the women. I didn't feel either, but they were saying really not nice things about each other, the guides. And that's when I realized, oh, their contract's complete. They're not meant to be, they had to learn lessons together, but they're not meant to be friends anymore. So they had to their guides had to say, this is not safe.
Right.
Exit.
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or,
Yeah.
it reminds me of Ivan Teller whenever he was like, yeah, I fired my guides. He's like, he's like, I got tired
remember
of, I got tired of,
You're like, wait, you can do that?
yeah. He's like, I didn't like
I fired my
what they were
guys.
telling me. Yeah.
Oh my God, that's so funny. Well, I just found out with a client that I had for years, his guides were telling him where to move. Oh, that's another fun story. In Australia, I had a client that it was a beautiful family, and they were worried their kids because that was when in Australia, certain parts they were vaccinating the children without the parents' permission on school buses and randomly throughout this. It was horrible. And this poor family who was so against all of it kept calling for a session and their guides, and I don't know Australia, so I would open up a map and because I was like, well, they're showing me to just circle an area of what's the safety zone. So they had me circle two parts of Australia and they said that's a safety zone. And then they had a few other sessions and they're like, you need to get a woman that's going to help you find a house and it's not going to be on the market yet. And it's going to be like a backdoor deal. And you're going to have to pay her 20,000, but it's going to work because you're missing out every deal on 20,000. And they said that's exactly what's been happening. Every place we've been putting our deal on our offer, we miss by 20,000. Long story short, they're now living the life of their dreams. Like a few years later, a few minutes from the ocean, their family's thriving. It's like they're the happiest family that I could ever imagine. And I was kind of nervous because I was like, gosh, they're trusting their guide so much. They're going to move their whole family. I was like, gosh. And ironically, the house showed up exactly how their guide said it would in the exact location. The kids were going to thrive exactly how the kids are now thriving. And so another client, it happened similarly. He was in the Midwest of the United States and he was super sick. His guides said to move to a certain location on the eastern coast, and it had beautiful sacred geometry all over the property. And I guess the architecture who built it was into sacred geometry and old ways of earth homing and all this beautiful energy. And he's thriving like a few years later. Um, but it's just so fascinating because he was just saying, like, I don't know, I don't remember some of the sessions, but I ended up meeting him and his wife to see where this earth home was. because I traveled to that area and it was exactly how the records described it. Like, because when I'm in the session, I get visions. So it's really hard. I wish I could paint or draw what I see, but it's kind of hard. But they kept showing this beautiful earth energy and all this sacred geometry. And when I was there, I actually saw exactly what they were showing. Like I had
Wow.
seen.
Well,
That's
I'm
amazing.
gonna have you circle some places on the map for me after this is over because I need to know where to go now. Um,
Well, your guides. It's not
yeah,
me. It's not me.
right.
It's your
I'm
guides.
gonna follow my footsteps and moving out of St. Louis.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah, there you
Yeah.
go.
We
it's
both grew
about
up in
time.
St. Louis. He's still there
Oh,
It's
in the
about time.
suburbs.
I can feel it
Uh,
though. So
sometimes though, energy, you have to hold sacred space in certain areas. Sometimes that's what I learned with light
yeah,
work, energy workers. Sometimes they're strategically placed to hold
Mm,
I
literally frequency.
yeah, I
absolutely.
understand that. And the longer I'm here, like the things happen every year, and I'm like, oh, I know why I needed to be here still.
Mhm.
Something. But I feel like that's like coming to an end.
There's still an awesome little community there that,
Right. Oh, big
you know,
time. Big
yeah,
time.
it's yeah,
My
it's actually
dad started a group called Universal Connection, and it's growing. Like it's amazing the people that are in this area that are waking up that show up every month now. It's once a month, and it started off as like maybe 5 to 8 people, and now it's like 25 to 30 people every month. And we're like looking for a bigger room, and people are just loving it. It's turned into this like little monthly meetup. But so there is a community here, yeah. But I think that community is growing everywhere. I think more
right,
people. I think
right.
more people are just finally seeing it. But we've been going for quite a while now. So, Aaron, did you want to add anything before we wrap this up?
No, no, this was amazing. Thank you so much, Leah. You're incredible. Yeah, thank you so much for
Hmm. Yeah,
sharing your story and being on the show.
yeah. Thank you. And can you please let our audience know once again where they can find you and how they can book sessions?
Yeah, so it was funny because I never kind of knew anything. I'm not really technologically advanced, so I actually had to make my own website. So just because I was so tired of just saying, well, I don't really have it ready, but so I have my website. I try to share a little bit of how to book a session, meaning I just share a time slot. So time slots, you basically can get whatever you want in terms of what you are needing at the time because everyone's session's completely different. So, but I always offer when I do people's Akashic records, I also, if they like and if they allow, I also do energy work. And that's when we can release cords that are no longer serving you. There's so much that can happen. I always call into archangel energy and people's guides just also clear a lot too. So basically, I just offer time. I do descriptions of what's available. Some people ask about loved ones on the other side. That's available. That was just showing up randomly in some people's sessions. And then some people were like, I need to talk to my aunt, Josie, and my uncle Tom, and my dad, and my mom. And they would just specifically ask, and their loved ones on the other side would show up. So, but not, you don't have to do that. But basically, it's catered towards whatever you need. Some people have weekly sessions. Some people have, whenever they feel intuitively drawn. Some people have monthly. Some people have just, checkups. But, with those that I work with weekly, they ask, I always am like, didn't their guides already say enough? Like they've been working with me for a year and they're calling weekly. What else could be said? And there's so much that can be said. So it's so much fun because some people talk about relationships, career, health. With the health stuff, I always like to research too, if they are given certain herbs to try or whatever, because that's also shows up in people's records. So literally, their homework is to go out, even if it's like 5 minutes every hour, just to reset their body because the EMFs, everything they're getting bombarded. They have zero protection anymore in their aura.
Right.
Hmm.
Have to go out and that's another thing that would show up if their aura was so. To me, it looks like very light and it's not strong with vibrant colors. They would go out. They'd have to go outside and get sacred symbols from the nature And that was interesting because a lot of sacred geometry would show up around people that were just going out to nature. They didn't have to go to necessarily sacred spaces on the earth, although there were a lot of sacred geometries in certain sacred spaces. But that was really fascinating because I never saw, I didn't see that a lot with just the energy field. It was in the Akashic records where I could see, wow, this person has gathered so many sacred symbols, and just being in that person's energy is offering those sacred symbols to others. And I was like, oh, that's why, like for me, I can feel so beautiful in someone's energy. Even if it's over the phone, I could just talk to them for hours because it's their energy. It's the sacred symbols that they picked up. It's the energy that, like that was someone else's lesson where they were like, what am I doing enough on this earth? Am I supposed to be doing more? And they were supposed to just be the high vibrational energy source as they themselves. And so their homework was to keep doing their walks with their dogs for like hours every day. They didn't really have to do anything because when they would go to interact with other people, like it was almost like they'd bless other people with this beautiful energy. And that's when I was like, oh, nature, that's the nature realm that they're gifting to other people. But I basically have time slots so you can kind of gear it and attune it however you'd like. I always ask if I can do energy work, and most likely everyone says yes. So that's like a reboot for a lot of people. But I can be reached at www.leahraylight.com, and it's LeahRaylight.com.
Well, that was amazing. Thank you so much for joining us today. And that link will be in the description as always. But yeah, you have an incredible story. And I mean, you have a lot to share. So thank you for going down the path that you did. So you could be here today sharing all this information with us. And we'll have to do this again because I'm sure there's more to share. And, we only barely got into the records part of it at the end of this. So just thank you. Thank you for everything you're doing. And thank you all for being here tonight with us. And make sure you go book a session with her because she's the real deal.
And
So
thank you so much. Thank you both for doing your work. It makes such a difference because I'm telling you, like I I like to hide out, but I'm just honored and grateful for all of you that can speak and deliver what's really happening and just share with so many people where you're brave and you do it so well. So thank you so much for doing your work.
thank you. Thank you so much. We
Thank
appreciate
you.
that. And we would like to invite everybody to our conference in May. There's still tickets available. And if you can't make it in person, you can grab a live stream pass for, I think, $88, I
88.
think. And if you find any of the presenters on social media and buy a ticket through their links, you get 10% off of the whole conference or the live stream pass. So take advantage of that. rebelsofdisclosure.com. And don't forget to check out our new website and sign up for our email list, journeytotruth.online. That being said, good night, everybody. Thank you. We love you all. And until next time, have a great evening.
Another turning point, a fork stuck in the road. Time grabs you by the wrist, directs you where to go. So make the best of this test and don't ask why. It's not a question but a lesson learned in time. It's something unpredictable, but in the end is right. I hope you had the time of your life. So take the photographs and still frames in your mind, hanging on a shelf in good health and good time. Tattoos and memories and dead skin on trial. For what it's worth, it was worth all the while. It's something unpredictable, but in the end is right. I hope you had the time of your life. Thank you. It's something unpredictable, but in the end it's right. I hope you had the time of your life. It's something unpredictable, but in the end it's right. I hope you had the time.
Actually, I was quoting Sherry.
That's the last time Brad will ever quote me.
Hey guys, we hope you can join us this year at the Rebels of Disclosure Conference in Grafton, Illinois at the Pierre Marquette Lodge and Conference Center, May 13th through the 16th. As you can see, we have tons of fun. We made some great memories, and we just wanted to take this opportunity to extend the invite to all of you who've never been. It's so much fun, and it's so important to connect with Soul Family, and we just really look forward to seeing everyone out there.
Yeah, I hope to see you all there. It's a blast. It's really something that you have to experience to know how amazing it is, and it's so much more than just the speakers. It's an amazing time, and it's amazing to connect with Soul Family. So we hope to see you all there.
And all of that information is below at rebelsofdisclosure.com. So grab a ticket and join us. We hope to see you there.